Bazil Meade here. I love playing old hymns. I love the sound of them. I love the way the chords are structured. But I, as an untrained keyboard player, rather self-taught keyboard player, I probably invent my own quirky chords and move through the songs using those chords that I feel and have the ability to play. And maybe there are many people who might watch this who are in the same position. You're self-taught, you haven't gone through the formality of learning with a tutor and so forth. And therefore we play very much from what we feel and our ears. So this is how I hear, "O God, our help in ages past."
Tell us, Mick, has improvisation been in you from a young age, or is it something that's come out as you've matured?
It was a funny situation, because my saxophone teacher, who was a very fine jazz player and all-round musician, never really, because I wasn't particularly academic at school, and musically, it took me 5 times to pass my grade 5 theory. That's how behind the wheel I was. So it got to the point where I was having to do a lot by ear. I was having to pick things up and try things out.
Tell us about you. How did you begin? Where was your musical journey?
So my musical journey was actually in church. Grew up obviously around a lot of music and stuff being played in the house. My mother was actually the organist and pianist for church, and my dad used to play guitar. So I was always keen. I think they were saying from a toddler, I was always keen on just getting up and playing, and they noticed that I had rhythm and stuff. So anyway, picked up a couple of pens at home that my parents had lying around, and just started tapping cushions and stuff. I used to set them up like a drum kit around me, so when adverts would come on, I'd start playing. But they noticed I had really good rhythm and stuff. So then eventually played at church when I was like 5 years old, and then because of my ears and what I was hearing musically, I used to pick up my dad's guitar. I can't play guitar very well, so I used to play the first 4 strings like a bass.
Yeah.
So I picked that up when I was like 8, 9 years old, and then they had a piano in the house as well. In fact, one of my friends I'd seen last week, he was saying that I actually said when I was about 5 or 6 that I was going to be a music man.
Wow.
Hey, 40 plus years later, sharing my age. But I mean, even from then, I think they were like, he's going to be a musician. I think this is his destiny. So I started, tinkering along on the piano to tunes and music. Who with like Anita Baker, Alexander O'Neill. Gospel wise, it was Billy Preston, the Crouch family, the Hawkins family, who wrote that hit, Oh Happy Day.
Yeah.
And then next thing I knew, I was playing for an artist from Leeds at the time who happened to be supporting them in London when they were coming over. So I was like a 13-year-old kid, actually out gigging and doing big shows, supporting my heroes. It was crazy time. And then after that, obviously due to American artists or artists here that would put on shows and stuff, I used to see a lot of musicians, and I was just the youngest guy in the game at the time, like 13, 14-year-old, touring and gigging every weekend. And then just the more playing and stuff that was happening in church and the gigs and stuff kind of helped me establish my career, really. Yeah.
So you're not a man who really reads dots. Do you have perfect pitch?
I'd say relative. Yeah, because even the theory and all of that, I'm always like, I think that sounds like G, or that sounds like C.
Yeah.
And I'm relatively close. Do you know
Right,
what I mean?
okay.
So yeah, so
you're close.
Yeah, so I'm
Yeah.
quite close.
Yeah.
But
So from an early age, were you picking up tunes by ear then? Is
Yeah.
that how you began?
it's all by ear, literally by ear. I'd hear it, like even sonically in sounds. My parents, my mum had like a little Casio keyboard and stuff. So because it had like electric piano or something that sounded like a piano at the time,
Yeah.
or strings, so I'd be able to pick out what that sound was. So I'd be like, that's electric piano. Oh, right, okay, I missed that note. So I'd work out the chords and stuff that way in sonics.
What about harmonies and bass lines? Are they as easy to hear? Did that take a lot longer to work out for you?
No, cause that's the thing, because I was playing, it's in that order, so drums, bass, guitar, and then keyboards. So it was obviously rhythm, then the bass line, and then harmonies was...
So as a man on the keys, for you then, does it always come from the bass, and is that how you get the harmonies? Because you think bass first? Because I think many people think melody first when they're learning. Right,
yeah. I mean, if it's going to be root note, it's going to be the bass note first or whatever the note is. So if it's C, in C, I'm going to go... And it's like, all right, okay, we're in C. It's the root note, basically, I learned from. And then just sonically unpacking anything, harmony-wise, that's an interesting question. As to how I unpack it. In fact, let's go back. So, like even playing Amazing Grace was the first tune I learned to play on the piano. So it meant I was like. Right, and then my dad was like, "Oi, there's some harmonies in there." try and stretch it out. So then I was like. And then bit by bit, then I wouldn't play the melody, but then I would just play the chords, say da 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 or whatever.
Yeah.
So then I'd work it out that way.
So from really that time at university was very interesting, because I was going to about 100 concerts a year in London. I mean, to be a student at that time in your life in London was in the 70s, late 70s, was very exciting. I think I would queue every single day from 12 o'clock to go to the dance concerts.
Wow.
And I learned so much repertoire. And of course the proms then, there was an enormous, there was a lot of experimental music. There was a lot of Schoenberg. There was, there was so much happening in the music world that one was being exposed to. And I even had the opportunity to perform a premiere of John Cage in the Roundhouse halfway through my degree course. I was one of 7 harpsichord players in the round when it was an electronic piece. And so I think it was all of that side of being of reading music at a good place was integral to my development as a musician.
And you're also saying that going to live performances is tremendously important.
Like, absolutely key for so many reasons. I mean, quite a part of the vast amount of repertoire you're absorbing, orchestral repertoire, choral repertoire, chamber repertoire, solo repertoire, you're being inspired by performers.
Then my mum enrolled me on, she enrolled me for a place in the Newham Academy of Music, which is in East London. And she enrolled me really early, and then she realised that they didn't do it like that anymore, and they tried to get me in. They got me in.
Was this on keys or?
No, this was as a percussionist, because I always. Percussionist. So I actually studied percussion from about the age of 10, and it was like orchestral percussion with my mentor and friend, Professor Colin Waller, who is a brilliant composer and arranger, a conductor. But what was quite interesting is that I never really ever felt that he taught us percussion or drums just from the perspective of being a drummer. He was always, he played the guitar, he produced, he played keyboards.
So it wasn't the rudiments, it was understanding music itself.
Yeah, it was understanding music itself, and he was really great. So he gave me lots of opportunities to play on. So I was playing in the recording studio at like 11, 12.
Hi Amelia, and welcome to the Bazil Online.
Thank you for having me.
So I obviously know a little bit about how your journey began, but tell us, how did your journey in music begin?
In music generally, it goes quite far back. So obviously you knew when I was about 10, I started lessons, and about that age I was really into musicals. So I did local theatre productions, did singing lessons for a few years, and I always loved music, but I never thought it would be my career, to be honest. I just loved it and it was a hobby. But then when I was about 15 or 16, about 15, I'd already been singing jazz songs in the local cafe. I was a waitress and I heard I could sing, and they're like, oh, do you want to sing for the customers on a Saturday night? And I had backing tracks and I loved doing it. And they got to a point where I thought, I love singing, but I want to accompany myself now. And I'd never really done any music lessons in terms of instruments. I've always preferred the singing part of music. And I asked for a ukulele for Christmas because it was the cheapest thing at the time that you could get. That, I tried. I think we bought a piano when I was younger for a few hundred, and I never used it. And it was, my mum was like, "You're not doing that again. You learn the instrument if I buy you it." So we got a cheap pink one for Christmas, and I just taught myself that. And I think at the time as well, ukulele was quite a big thing. So people on YouTube doing it, and I just sat in my room for a few weeks and taught myself all my favourite songs, and then that became, again, just part of a hobby when I was a teenager. And then I started going to some local open mic nights and just playing songs, and I realised that I was actually people were paying attention and I was doing really well from it. And someone who owned the pub at the open mic, and I said, oh, will you play for me and I'll pay you? And at this point I thought, getting paid to sing, I didn't think that was possible.
Get paid to do what you love.
Yeah, and I thought, I'm 15, I've only got a ukulele, how is this happening? And it was a dream come true. And it just went from there. I played at their pub, then another man saw me and said, oh, I've got a pub, will you play at mine? And that's how I realised I could maybe do this. I still never believed I could do it as a career, but I thought, oh, I'll do this alongside my studies. And I just grew from there. It started off, I was very shy and I was just playing covers with a little music stand in front of me, and then I started writing my own songs, and I started doing gigs where people paid tickets to come. They weren't just random punters who were having a drink, and I just grew from there, and now I'm doing it full time.
Hi Robert, and welcome to the Maestro Online.
Hi Robin, how are you?
I'm great, thank you. It's fabulous to have you here. Now, you've developed such an amazing career in so many different ways, whether that be conducting or composing or arranging or being in studios or producing or as a pianist. So there's a huge breadth to you. Where did it start? Where did this all begin?
Well, it all began on my grandmother's piano, which we had in my house. My mum had the piano from her mother, and it all started by me playing on that as a boy, as a 3, 4, 5-year-old, just playing around with it. And the strangest thing happened, I guess, when I was about 5 or 6 years old, which is I used to go to the piano, and it was in the days where here in the UK we used to have a program called Top of the Pops, and it was on once a week, and it was like one of the big things on TV on BBC One every week, and who was going to be number one in the charts. And we all watched it as a family, and we used to watch this Top of the Pops. I used to hear a song on it, and then I used to go and play it on the piano. I'd never had any lessons, never had any training. Nobody quite knew how I'd do that. And it was just one of those things where it just came very naturally to me, trying to learn and understand music theory. And I remember struggling with that as a sort of a really probably 9, 10-year-old. I have vivid memories of the concepts of and the complications of music theory. And I mean, that's a whole other topic, because music theory is one of these strange things in life where actually the more you learn, the easier it becomes by an exponential amount. And all of a sudden, it's like baking a cake. You've got all these ingredients, all these different elements, which is the music theory. And then all of a sudden, when you have all the ingredients, something clicks, and you suddenly go, oh, well, this is easy. And it all just sort of falls into place. And
Hi, Caesar. Welcome to the Maestro Online.
Thank you. I'm happy to be here.
We're very happy to have you. So Caesar, you're a respected organist, but you're also respected for your influence on organ education and improvisation. So not just as performer, but the whole package, if you like. Where did it all begin for you?
Well, for me, it started very early, in my early childhood. And now I'm talking about when I was 3 years old. We had a little organ at home, a little reed organ, and whatever music I could sing, little songs or whatever records we had at home that I liked, I would just try to copy that and to play it on the organ. So that's how it all started. And that is actually very important. Later in life, I discovered that that's actually the right beginning of making music. Because, well, that's one of my things, what we will talk about later as well. How do you start actually making music? It shouldn't be just lessons with very practical things that you have to exercise every day. No, it's just listening to music, having fun, singing songs, try to copy whatever you hear. So that's how it started with me. And then I had my first... Yes?
So from the early days, you were rather sound to instrument rather than starting with the cymbal, rather than starting with the printer score from your very young days, you were starting with the sound and copying the sound.
Yeah, definitely. It all starts with singing, because everyone can copy something what you hear in singing. That's your most natural instrument, so to speak. And then you can copy that to whatever instrument. I mean, you can do it with every instrument. You just copy whatever you hear. And that means you're developing your inner hearing and your understanding of music. So that's actually the main thing of music making.
So obviously at the age of 4 or whatever, for you, it was fun. At what stage did you realise, or did you have ambitions to develop it more than fun and more than a hobby, and you could see that it was you?
Well, I still always use the joke that I don't work, I only play. So for me, it's still a lot of fun. But I got my first organ lessons when I was 9 years old. That was kind of the rule in the Netherlands. First you had 2 years of some theoretical training, which was not really that serious, but you did sing some songs and canons and did some rhythmical things. And then at 9 you were allowed to play the organ and to have lessons. But of course, I already could play the organ, so I wanted to show off to my teacher. I still remember in my first lesson with 2 hands and pedal, look what I can do. And luckily, he was a very good teacher, because he didn't know what to do with that, but he understood that it was very important to me. So what he did was he gave me, again, one of those methods, which I really hate still. Today I still hate methods. But of course they're a good training material, so I had to do exactly what was on the paper on my desk. I had to practice very hard. And if I played it correctly a week after that in the lesson, I could improvise all I want. But that was the rule. I could only improvise if I did my lessons correctly. And it was very smart of him because you have to imagine I hated the exercises. I just wanted to play beautiful songs and melodies that I knew. And then you get this book with, well, everyone knows it, the wonderful melodies like...
Yes.
But that's the first exercise, and then with your left hand and then together.
Yes. I'm quite sure that's not how Bach learned.
No, I'm pretty sure, actually. But that's, of course, still the way that everyone learns. And it was all right. I mean, he got me from that first learning how to read scores to the little 8 preludes and fugues.
Welcome, Will. Welcome to The Most of Online.
It is brilliant to be here. Thank you for having me.
So let's talk about how music began for you. Did you have a musical family, or does it all come from you? Has it come from your parents?
I had a brilliant time in my family home, actually, with music. No professional musicians in the house, but lots and lots of music on record, on the radio. My big sisters played instruments. My big sister played the piano and another sister played the cello. So there was people practicing instruments, people played the recorder. We listened to a big range of music. My mum and dad had a very broad taste. They listened to opera, they listened to jazz, they listened to... My mum loved country music. We had choral music at church. There was a big spectrum of music that I heard. And for me, it was actually the fact that the piano was in the house that was the big kind of touch paper for me with music. Because what happened is I literally started playing, as in being a kid playing, on the piano with its shapes. Because my big sister was playing sort of nice pieces and I would get up on the piano stool and literally I still have memories of this, sort of playing the piano, just trying things out.
So your composition almost comes from that sense of childhood discovery, going, oh, I like the sound of that, or I don't like the sound of that, or what's this sound like?
It totally does. It totally does. So, I learned that, if you have notes close together, they make more clashy noises.
Yeah.
And then, as you spread things out, I wouldn't have had the words for this as a very small person, but that's what I was discovering.
Yes.
Literally by trial and error. I was discovering sounds that worked nicely together.
Yeah.
And then sounds that were more jarring together,
Okay, so it's a sense of response to what you hear first, and it's a sense of play, as in children playing,
Absolutely.
Evolving. And then gradually you're refining things. You're beginning to think what sounds nice, what doesn't sound nice. How do things follow?
That's right, and I worked out the triads that they work. That a triad on the piano sort of worked as a thing, as a block. And for the major triads on white notes, I got C, F, and G, and I started to use those because obviously they underpin so much music. Chords 1, 4, 5. And my dad, who played a tiny bit of piano, at one point, I don't know how old I was, but maybe sort of 6 years old, 6 or 7, he showed me the 12-bar blues, because it was like the one thing he could play, like a boogie-woogie style that he could play.
Yes.
And I realised, this is 1, 4, 5.
Yes.
This is what I've been doing.
Yes.
And things began to kind of fall into place, and then I would be trying to play bits of music that my sister had on the thing, and I would see, little Mozart piece in C. We seem to have gone from C to an F thing. All these relationships that I began to see in written music that I'd actually, in a sense, discovered by trial and error.
Yeah, you must already have a natural ear to an extent, because you've identified those 1, 4, 5 chords yourself, rather than somebody telling you, which is how most of us experience it. Most people have been told, lots of pop songs use 1, 4, 5.
Yeah, absolutely.
And that kind of information coming from another person, but for you, it was information coming from your ear. What sounded good together.
But what was interesting about that was I didn't know them as 1, 4, 5.
Yeah.
I think I knew them as C, F and G because I knew the note names going up, which my sister had taught me. So I knew, middle C was a C.
Yes.
And another thing, of course, about the piano is the brilliant pattern that it's in. So all the C's fit with each other.
Yes.
So you found those 2 black notes. There's C just beneath. Oh, there's another 2 black notes. Oh, and there's the C beneath. Oh, you play them together. Oh, they work together. So there's patterns developed, which I think as humans we like patterns, don't we? And
my great grandfather was a piano maker, and I just loved the sound that things make, that the piano makes, and the different chords. And when I was about 15, for some reason I said, can I give up? I don't want to have any more piano lessons. Now most parents, and certainly me as a teacher, would tend to say, but you love it and you're good at it, carry on. But they just said, yes, of course, my parents. And after that, I played the piano 4 times as much as I did, because I didn't have to learn the pieces, and I just wanted to make up things. And that's when I started playing things in all different keys, and loving playing them in keys.
You don't want to almost sound like Adele, or you don't want to almost sound like somebody else. You don't want to be a second.
No.
Because if you try and copy somebody, you'll always be almost them.
Yeah, exactly.
You've got to be yourself, and then you get your own identity.
Have to be. 100%. 100%, and that's what, that's one thing I would always encourage, for any musician or singer or whatever, just to find that nugget that's you. So when people hear you, they go, oh yeah, that's definitely Robin, or that's definitely Mark, or that's definitely.
Do you know, that's a sentence we should end this interview on.
Yeah.
Find that nugget that's you.
Yeah,
Mark Walker.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Nice one, man.
Thank you.